Oh, hello, this is Tak Chung from Walk with Tak. Welcome to my YouTube channel. A number of years ago, I attended a wedding and they served an amazing hors d'oeuvre. It is like a little small cube of steak. I believe it is a top sirloin steak. The outside of the steak is perfectly cooked. The inside is about medium rare. It was the most popular hors d'oeuvre that evening. Everybody tried to grab an extra piece. Like the saying goes, food creates the best memory. This steak is the best memory of the wedding for me. I filed this in the back of my mind, but I have never tasted such good steak ever since. Every time when I see the groom, who is the friend invited me to the wedding, I immediately think of that wonderful steak at his wedding. Over the years, I have tried to recreate this piece of steak. Several years ago, I finally figured out how to do this, and I'm going to show you in this video. I have been cooking steaks in my wok for a number of years. In this demonstration, I'm going to cook a piece of top sirloin steak in my 14-inch Cuisines stainless steel wok. I really enjoy using this wok, not that it cooks any better than other woks that I have, but one thing I do like about this wok is that it is easily cleaned. If I cook properly with some caution, I would not leave any stain in the wok. All I have to do is take it to the sink and just a few brush with my wok brush, it will be clean. I like my wok shiny, so this wok definitely meets the bill. I added about 1 tablespoon of canola oil after I heat up the wok, and then I spot season the wok. The spot seasoning will help me to make sure that the wok has a non-stick surface. I'm going to cook about a piece of steak, which is a sirloin steak that weighs about 10 ounces. I let one side of the steak to cook for about 3 minutes. I flip the steak over and I put a little bit of seasoning on the side of the steak. I let the steak to cook for about 2 to 3 minutes before I flip it over. I use an electron mid thermometer to test the temperature of the steak. This thermometer is extremely useful for this purpose. After I cook the steak for about 5 to 6 minutes, the inside temperature is about 100 degrees Fahrenheit. As you can tell, the surface of the steak looks pretty charred. I flip the steak over several times to make sure it is evenly cooked. I test the temperature again, and now it is about 130 degrees, which should be about medium rare. This is how I want the steak going to be. So I took it off from the burner. I placed the steak on a cutting board and let it rest for about 10 minutes before I cut into it. As they say, the proof is in the pudding. Now let me see whether it is the way how I expect it to be. Yes, it worked out really well. It is about perfectly medium rare. The total cook time of this steak in the wok over the stove is about 8 minutes. From this cooking exercise, it becomes very clear that the thickness of the steak is probably the most important in determining how it is going to be cooked. If I want to reproduce the doneness of this piece of steak, I could use little cubes rather than the entire piece of steak. So this is exactly what I'm going to do. I take another piece of steak, which is about the same thickness, and I cut them into 1.5 inch cubes. So I continue the process without washing the wok. I heat up the oil and then I place 7 pieces of this steak cubes into the bottom of the wok. I let it cook for about 60 seconds before turning it over. As you can see, the backside of the steak is very well cooked now. However, it is not as burned as when I cooked the steak in its entire piece. I let the other side to cook for about 30 seconds before turning them over again. As you can tell, the steak cooks very rapidly when they are cut in small pieces. Because they are in cubes, so I can turn the steak to cook all the 4 sides. I then use the meat thermometer to check the temperature of the interior of the steak. The temperature is a little bit higher than I want. It is right around 133 degrees Fahrenheit. So I pick the steak up out of the wok and set them aside. The main concern that I have is that if you cook the steak in smaller cubes, would it be as moist as when it is cooked in its entirety? I let the steak to rest for about 10 minutes before I cut it open. The inside of the steak is as moist as when I cook the entire piece. The texture of the steak is just perfect. It is right between medium rare and medium. This steak then reminds me what is served at the wedding reception as an hors d'oeuvre. My wife and I eat very little meat these days. However, she's still craving for salmon. Usually we will have salmon about once a week. In my case, I always have a hankering for a good piece of steak. In many ways, this method is perfect because I can cook just a few pieces of steak to satisfy my craving. And honestly, using this method, I think I cook the best steaks that I have ever tasted. Before I developed this method, I used to go to a steakhouse to have a piece of steak to satisfy my desire. However, most of the time, they give me a steak much bigger than what I can consume. I end up usually bringing half of them home. Not to mention that this is very expensive. Using this method, I can go and buy the highest quality steak, and I can buy them when they are on sale. When I bring them home, I would cut them up and distribute them into packages for freezing. Each bag will provide a small portion that I would like to have. And now I can have excellent, juicy and succulent steak anytime I want, and also in the amount that I would like to have. In addition, I can use this steak in combination with vegetables as well as other ingredients. For example, in this case, after I slice up the steak, I incorporate them into a chicken mushroom dish. I have made this method for cooking the steak into a template. Using this template, I can substitute the steak with salmon, and it turned out it worked really well. I know that I can also use it for pork or chicken. To me, this is what I would call the flavor chasing part of my fast cooking system. This steak very much reminds me the hors d'oeuvre steak at my friend's wedding, tasty and succulent. It is very simple and straightforward and also time-saving. As I mentioned, when I cook the entire piece of steak, it takes about 8 minutes. But for cooking the steak this way, it only takes about 3.5 minutes. As you can tell, I'm really not a great cook. From at least the standpoint of a professional chef. I'm just an amateur cook playing around in the kitchen. But I think this is how we actually get to cook regularly. I look at the kitchen almost like my sandbox. I go in and play around and try to build different things, just out of intuition and out of a sense of pleasure. With this playful approach, cooking becomes really an enjoyable pastime for me. And this is the reason that I will keep cooking. However, I know the outcome is important because through home cooking, I will be able to maintain my health. It's a long-term investment. From my standpoint, it is both fun and enjoyable. Why not go for it? Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please click the like icon below. This will help me to broaden my audience. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you'd like to receive notifications of my future video postings. See you next time.